Good evening, everybody. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I apologize for starting the meeting later than intended. That falls on me. We have public comment tonight. Public comment's limited to 15 minutes, and individually you're limited to 3 minutes. And our attorney will keep the time. So I have a number of people here. The first one being Etta Petrillo.
I have 3 minutes, correct? Good evening. I'd like to start out by saying that we are aware that we cannot reverse the decision made at the last meeting regarding the project-based learning grant. We as the Mount Hope Student Union are here to demand a change in how the school committee is run. What happened at the last meeting was racist, plain and simple. Yes, Ms. Simpson-Thomas, the facilitator chosen by Dr. DiBiase, focuses on support for Black and Brown students. However, just because she focuses on Black and Brown students doesn't mean that she's ignoring other students or denying them an opportunity. Before she went on her tangent about what about all students, Ms. Ellsworth said that they, as in the Black and Brown students of our school, deserve to be treated with respect. Yet this committee's decision was far from any form of it. You say that we need to uplift all of our students, yet when our community speaks up about the issues minorities in our community face, you are nowhere to be found. We are not saying other kids don't need support. We are saying that Black and Brown students need to be heard. It's 2021. The vast majority of our population agrees that there's racial discrimination in our society, and this just further proves it. Come up with any excuse you want, but if you're not supporting students at a disadvantage, you are not supporting the whole student body and ensuring their future success. It's astonishing that this district gets so many grants given to us, yet this committee, specifically a select group of you, consistently turns down said grants that we desperately need. This district desperately needed this grant. The money given had been pending for over 3 years, so why is the vendor a concern now? This committee had been pushing back that grant for an incredibly long time, so why wait until the end of the due date? If even we as students can see that we need this money, then there's clearly a problem. All we hear is adults yelling at each other and, frankly, disgracing this district every time an important issue comes up. If you can't treat each other with respect, how can you expect us to respect each other? It's truly embarrassing. We've been watching this committee consistently drop the ball when it comes to interests pertaining to the student community and their success in the global community. It's truly a privilege that we have such high graduation rates at this high school. But as Ms. Thibodeau pointed out last meeting, our college graduation rates dropped significantly. Has it occurred to you that this may be because we are not preparing our students for the outside world? That we are preparing them to continue life in a bubble of whiteness, and when they leave it, they are checked for their bigotry, for their homophobia, and for their racism? You as a committee are not here to push your individual agenda. You're here to represent our community, a vast amount of which want our education system to be better, to teach our students why they cannot be allowed to continue to be bigoted and discriminatory. You as a committee are not acting in the best interest of the students, teachers, and administrators of this district. You are failing our students majorly. I'd like to pull a quote from Ms. McBride back from when she was interviewed by the student union for her role that she still holds tonight. Ms. McBride, you said that student representation is critical, that you don't think we have enough and that we need to build on that again. Yet when people on this committee are showing blatant signs of bigotry and discrimination towards those very students, you say nothing. You're standing by and helping to hurt the very students that you vow to protect. The Mount Hope Student Union has no confidence in this committee, and we demand that Ms. McBride, Ms. Ellsworth, and Ms. Thibodeau, as well as any member unwilling to commit to protecting all students, step down. We also demand that proper legislation be put in place so that the responsibilities, term limits, and qualifications of committee members can be properly defined.
Thank
want
you.
all of you
Thank
to
you
think-
very much, but your time
I'm
is,
still
your-
speaking. We want all of you to think.
no, I'm sorry, but your time is up. There are other people who wish to speak, and they have signed up, and your 3 minutes is done. Thank you. Hmm?
Read the next person.
Sophie Vergadamo. Sophie Vergadamo is the next person who asked to speak. Sophie?
My name is Sophia Vergadamo. I am the president of the Mount Hope Student Union, and I yield my time to Etta Petrillo. Thank you.
No? Nobody. There's nobody else. Yeah.
I have one thing to say to you. We want all of you to think, really think about why you're on this board and how you affect everyone in this district. Thank you.
I need, ladies and gentlemen, I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Discussion, Erin, it's not there, it's farther down. You don't need to pull anything off, it's farther down.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Tonight, our workshop focuses on the RICAS scores, and so I'll turn it over to the superintendent and the assistant superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. I have the principals here this evening, and I believe Mary Cabral is in the audience if we have questions that they might be able to address for us. So this evening, we'll see a presentation on the results of the 2021 state assessment results. And these are the RICAS assessment results for ELA and mathematics, as well as the PSAT and the SAT results. In addition, we've included our data from the iReady assessment. That's our local assessment that we give 3 times per year, beginning, middle, and end of year. And it also has progress monitoring tools for us. The iReady assessment is closely aligned to the RICAS, but it gives us more tools and allows us to dive deeper into student-specific needs. I want to begin by just sharing several factors that have impacted our achievement. First of all, it was limited access to in-person instruction. So during the 2021 school year, we had between 20 to 30% of students who were engaged in full distance learning. So they were not in our classrooms, they were learning virtually through Google Classroom or Seesaw. In addition, the instructional format that was needed was very challenging for both teachers and students. So we had students in front of teachers, we had some students that were in a virtual classroom, and in some cases in middle and high school, we had teachers that were trying to teach to both groups at the same time. So that was difficult for both students and staff and for planning purposes. Also, on the student behalf, we had inconsistent engagement and participation for our distance learning students. At the middle school and high school, as you recall, we had a partial week where students were in school and then they were at home. And that limited the amount of content that students learned. Again, it was not an ideal situation, but everyone certainly did their best. At the elementary level in grades K through 1, what we found from our teachers as they were teaching reading, that it was very limited for K through 1 students, especially with wearing masks. A big part of language development is being able to see someone's face as they're speaking and learning sounds and articulation. In math, we weren't able to use all of the manipulatives that we typically use to build conceptual understanding, so that was difficult at the elementary especially. And then regarding interventions, it was very, very difficult for students who were distance learning to be able to receive interventions from their teachers, and that was both for academic and social emotional. And also access to technology, that was problematic for some families as well. Just a few other factors. We had high absenteeism due to illness and quarantines. And in some schools, we were understaffed. We had a difficult time getting long-term substitutes for reading specialists and also for teachers of multilingual learners. Also at home, there were varying levels of support, and that was problematic for students. And we should also recognize the impact on families due to job loss, instability, and access to health care. One final factor is the limited participation in our 21 assessments. So you'll notice that we did have much lower participation at some grade levels. But despite all of these challenges, our students and our teachers and our principals persevered, and they focused on learning, and we're extremely proud of all of the work that was done. So just a brief note on the impact of COVID-19 at the national level. There are a few trends that we see with our own data. Overall, students only learned about 67% of the grade level content that they typically learn, which created unfinished learning or learning loss. Excuse me. Nationally, students experienced about a 15% decrease in achievement in reading and a 30% decrease in math, so double what it was for reading. Students with disabilities and multilingual learners were impacted the most. Specialized instruction was extremely problematic, the use of web-based videos that could not easily be translated, and families didn't have the same access to teachers that they typically do when they were dropping off children or picking them up. Furthermore, 15 months of isolation and uncertainty has taken a toll on our students' mental health. In one study, 30% of families reported that their child's emotional and mental health had been harmed by the pandemic, and doctors have also recognized an increase in suicide ideation amongst our teens. Overall, these results mirror what we are seeing in our own district, and they have informed the support and intervention programs that were initiated by our teachers and our principals this year. I'm going to begin with the RICAS ELA results, and then we'll also be discussing the PSAT and SAT results. For those of you not familiar with the RICAS and the state assessment, there are 4 achievement level descriptors that you can see here, 4 being the highest, meaning that students exceeded the expectations, 3 is meeting, 2 is partially meeting, and 1 is not meeting. In addition, they give us a growth percentile, which shows how much a student grew in comparison to their peers, and it's high growth, typical growth, or low growth. The achievement levels are important because they let teachers and parents know when a student is meeting the learning expectations for his or her grade level. When a child is partially meeting, this means that they need more instruction in some domain areas while meeting expectation in other words. In other words, they're proficient in some areas of reading, but need support in others. So it doesn't mean that they're not proficient, it just means that they need additional instruction in some areas. We'll begin with Colt Andrews. The data that you see before you shows 3 years of data from the 17-18 school year, 18-19, and the 2021. It should be noted that RICAS was not given in the school year 19-20 due to COVID. Despite the challenges, Colt Andrews continued to increase its proficiency in grade 3, which was amazing. They increased from 55 to 69% over 3 years. Grade 4 had a slight decrease from 17-18. And the grade 5 results are also shown here, and they include the growth data as well, and I mentioned that earlier. And the blue is high growth, representing that students have made more than typical growth. And last year, as I mentioned, it was especially hard to address achievement gaps, and the percentage of students who made less than typical growth grew. Schools have the ability to dive deeper into this data through the tools that we have, and that's the work that's been going on in our schools since we received the data. Next, we'll go to Gutierrez. Over the past 3 to 4 years, Gutierrez has made some significant gains. They've done well in maintaining and actually increasing the results in grades 3 and 4 from the 18-19 to 21-21 school year. The growth data for grade 5 also shows the amazing work that Gutierrez has been doing to close achievement gaps and promote growth. And this is through the MTSS process that you'll hear me talk about later. That's multi-tiered systems of supports. That's where teachers are working together to use data to set goals, to inform specific interventions, and to monitor student progress. Colt experienced a decrease in all 3 grade levels, and this was impacted by all of the factors that I noted earlier, but specific to Colt, they also had a number of teachers who were out on medical leave for last year, and we had beginning teachers. They also had, within their school alone, 20% of students on full distance learning and having a difficult time getting long-term substitutes. Also, what we know from data at the national level is that Title I schools, or schools with higher levels of children living in poverty, were impacted the most, and we see that in our own results. Rockwell Elementary School also had decreases in grades 3 and 4. However, they had a 12% gain in grade 5. And we believe this is partially due to both grade 5 teachers at Rockwell participating in an ELA pilot for the entire year. So as you can see, the results are different by school. We have increases and decreases, and in many cases, students held their own and teachers held their own and were able to maintain the proficiency levels. At the middle school level, we were pleased to see gains in achievement across all 3 years in grade 6 and grade 7. And again, we had a pilot of a new ELA curriculum going on in the middle school that may have influenced this increase. 100% of the students at the middle school participated in the pilot and saw growth, with the exception of grade 8, where we had a higher number of students participating in virtual learning. And I just want to mention how challenging it was and how brave it was for teachers to be doing a pilot during COVID, doing hybrid learning, having to plan 2 different lessons. So it was, I was very pleased that we were able to keep the pilot going, and a lot of it was related to grant funding, but teachers were committed to make those changes, and they did it through some of the worst conditions we can imagine. At the high school level, these are the results for the PSAT and the SAT. And we see for PSAT that there was an increase in all 3 years of the assessment. In SAT, they were making gains, but had a slight decrease last year in the assessment. And I have a lot of slides, so I am going to try to go through quickly. These are the results for the interim assessment, beginning of the year for grades K through 5.
I don't know. I don't know.
And I will hold.
I guess not.
My dog does this with cows.
They do it without them. That's a blind date. Huh?
Okay.
Who's this guy here?
Are we okay to continue, or should I wait? Okay. So just getting back to our local assessment data, with the exception of K, our grades were consistent in the percentage of students who were early on grade level or at or above grade level, and we showed a slight increase. And as I mentioned, our interim assessment results do parallel what the expectation will be for the state assessment, but they give us much more in-depth data. So those are the results for K through 5. And here are the results for grades 6 through 8. And just a quick note, if you think back to the RICAS results, we saw that 42% of students, 44% of students were proficient in RICAS in grade 8. And when we look, in grade 7, when we look at this grade 8 beginning of the year data, those are those 7th graders, so you can see that they were able to maintain their proficiency level. Here's a quick look at a comparison of results across the East Bay districts in ELA. And on the website that is linked on this PowerPoint, you can compare us to any district, any grade level. There's a great deal of data there, but when we look at just the East Bay districts, we had the 3rd highest results. And then the last slide for ELA is just to look at what we do every year. It's called a cohort view, where we track student group. We track their proficiency each year. So if you follow the squares and the colors up, that's actually a group of students moving up through the years. So it's just another view for us. So that's the K through 12 view of our ELA results. In the next few slides, we'll look at what we are doing to address learning loss and to accelerate achievement. At the K through 5 level, as I mentioned, we have new ELA curriculum called Interreading. It was implemented this year. It's a research-based program, so we're very excited about the implementation to date, and teachers have very positive remarks about what they're seeing as far as instruction. We also have teachers participating in the LETTERS training, which is the science of reading and structured literacy. All K through 2 teachers are participating right now, and next year we'll move that up to grades 3 through 5, and that provides, again, a more research-based to instruction. At the elementary level, the principals are also working on prioritizing instructional time, making sure that all grade levels have a minimum of 2 hours for ELA and 1 hour for math. In addition, they are implementing designated interventions and enrichment blocks during the day, and using evidence-based tools and interventions as part of their MTSS process. They also have after-school programs that are either in place or coming soon. We've also hired additional reading interventionists to support the intervention process through ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And we've also increased our student support staff, hiring through ESSER 3 additional social workers for Colt Andrews, Cole, Rockwell, and Gutierrez at the elementary level, and that's coming in the ESSER 3 grant that you'll be seeing soon. At the middle school level, again, many of the same initiatives taking place, with the new curriculum being formally implemented and training being provided, looking at instructional time. At the middle school level, they have an intervention block that's called the WIN block for What I Need, and that's up and running, and teachers are working with small groups to really pinpoint their specific learning needs. They'll also be starting an after-school intervention program soon, and they've requested an additional reading interventionist and a social worker. At the high school level, again, you see the parallel of our approach. We're making sure that we have new high-quality curriculum in place, participating in training related to the science of reading, and really strengthening our MTSS process. And again, we are adding an additional reading interventionist at the high school. And the high school is also working on an interdisciplinary literacy approach to make sure that we're strengthening students' reading and writing across all content areas. And then all of these initiatives are supported by ongoing professional learning. So we have a number of things in place that we're really proud of. Most importantly, at the K-8 level, we have an ELA coordinator who is working with 4 literacy leads that were hired through our ESSER funds. Those are one-year-only positions, and they're working directly with grade-level teachers, providing them ongoing professional development, job-embedded coaching by unit, modeling lessons, co-teaching with them, and supporting collaborative planning. So our goal is to really share classroom practices across the district, making sure that all elementary schools have the support that they need to fully implement the program. And at the end of this year, we will have trained 50 teachers in the LETTERS program, and I know that that will be a big boost to our achievement. And as I mentioned earlier, grades 3 through 5 will be working on that next year. So we'll switch gears and go to math. Here are the results for Colt Andrews, and we see that we did have decreases in all 3 levels. And again, I want to reiterate that the achievement loss in math is always higher, whether it's during the summer or during the school year. It's very difficult to close achievement gaps and much more difficult in light of all of the challenges that we've had. Grade 4 did show a slight increase, so we need to point that out wherever we can, because everyone has worked so hard to maintain students' proficiency and continue to close achievement gaps, and we'll be doing that all throughout this year. Gutierrez, you can see that we did have decreases, unfortunately, in all 3 years. But again, if you look at the growth data for Gutierrez, you can see a high level of blue in that very bottom line. It shows that what teachers are doing to close achievement gaps is working, and that's been a big focus for Gutierrez through the MTSS process. At UCole, we also see, unfortunately, decreases in math. We've had meetings with and discussions with all of our principals on the supports that they need, and UCole has a great plan in place to really be proactive in addressing those achievement gaps and to give the students the support that they need as soon as possible. All of our schools have that in place, but the most recent conversation was with UCole, and we're very confident in the plan that the principal has put in place. Rockwell also had decreases in all grades 3 through 5. And again, I want to just reiterate, it was really difficult to close achievement gaps virtually and to not be able to use all of those math manipulatives that we use at the elementary level. At the middle school level, again, unfortunately, we see decreases, but we are confident with the new program that we have going in, with the win block that we have, that we will get to these decreases and that we'll get our achievement back on track. And then same thing for the math, PSAT and SAT, slight decrease 2019 to 21. And at the SAT level, we were making progress and had some gains in 2019, but unfortunately slipped back a little bit there. So here are the results of our interim assessment. And overall, we saw a slight decrease in the percentage of students who are ready for grade level learning. But in many grades, there was a slight increase in the percentage of students but also a slight increase in the percentage of students who are 2 or more years below, and that's the red that you see at the bottom. So that's where we really need to dive in and find out which student groups need work on which standards, and that's where we will focus our intervention. In comparison to other East Bay districts, again, we rank 3rd. So even though we're lower in math, we are still holding our own. Here's the longitudinal look. And again, we do see a decrease as the students move up in the years. So how are we addressing learning loss in math? In grades K through 5, we're reviewing the curriculum implementation of Ready Math, which is a high-quality mathematics program. We're taking a look at instructional approaches. We're taking a look at the level of rigor expected of students. We're also working to identify focus standards and the learning progressions for targeted skills. And again, we've implemented the intervention and enrichment block at every grade level and provided teachers with evidence-based intervention tools to support the MTSS process. We've also implemented after-school programs at UCole and Colt Andrews. They are already in place, and they'll be coming soon to Gutierrez and Rockwell. We added additional math interventionists to support this process this year. These were 1-year only positions through the ESSER 2 grant, and we have requests for additional math interventionists through the ESSER 3 grant, and we'll be bringing those before you soon. At UCole, we're also requesting additional teacher assistants to support small group intervention within the classroom. That's a model that has been working for them, and we'd like to provide them with more support. I will also note that our K-8 math coach is working very hard with all of the schools to help them analyze their data, to look at the mathematical strands and really break down the areas that students need more support with. We're also adapting the scope and sequence so that we can add additional days to front load information and learning for students. At the middle school level, we have similar processes in place. We also have a new math curriculum at the middle school in grades 7 and 8. It's the illustrative math program that was approved last year, and it is a research-based program. We're also implementing the iReady assessment and intervention tool, and teachers have received additional training this year. And again, prioritizing instructional time in the WIN block, as well as evidence-based intervention tools. An after-school intervention program for math will be coming soon. And we've also added two additional math interventionists at the middle school this year that are already in place. At the high school level, they also have adopted the illustrative math program this year and are working to strengthen their intervention program. After-school programs are in place, and we will be hiring an additional reading interventionist and math interventionist, and those will be coming before you for approval through ESSER 3. The math work that we're doing is also supported by professional learning through our department chairs, our K-8 math coach, focused on data analysis and working towards full implementation of our curriculum to give students access to the learning that they need. And in both ELA and math, we are also providing training for principals in the new programs and data analysis tools. And last slide, I promise, next steps for us. Continue to provide intervention across every school and every grade to incorporate the unfinished learning from last year into our curriculum units for this year. The week of November 12th, our students will take a very brief growth monitoring assessment in ELA and math to determine the impact of the interventions that we've been providing and to make sure that students are growing. Also, we'll continue to analyze the data from both state and local assessments by grade, by class, by teacher to identify what students need and to update their intervention plans. After-school tutoring will be in place, and we're already planning for next year for a summer tutoring program through ESSER 3. And just a final note for families, during parent-teacher conferences, a paper copy of the RICAS student reports will be sent home. So our goals for this year, as you can see, are really strengthening our core instruction, making sure that we have research-based instructional practices in place so that we prevent learning gaps, and to further develop the capacity of our schools to ensure that all students have access to research-based interventions for both academic and social emotional learning. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments or questions?
I have this one is just just on that last point that you made for parents like myself and others to know. So is that at every grade level that the RICAS results will be given to parents? Because at the middle school and elementary school level, the conferences are virtual. And I believe at the high school, they are in person.
My mistake. They will be sent home. And they are also available, the students' overall proficiency levels are available in the Aspen Parent Portal. We've uploaded them. You'll also find the iReady assessment results. So when you go into your students' portal, over on the left, you'll see assessments. And if you click on there, you'll be able to see the assessment results.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
One question mark. Thanks. So I just have one question. So the interventionists for the math in LA in the elementaries, so how many are we putting in the elementaries and how many students are we able to support with that? In the middle and the high school, but the elementaries, if we can, sorry, block it off.
That is a great question, and I wonder if any of our elementary principals would like to tackle that. I don't have that number in front of me.
Oh, sorry. How many interventionists for LA and math are in the elementary schools, and how many students are they supporting? And how many students? Like, how many students does it support? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. So the LA is 35 and math is 20? Okay. And so those students, I'm assuming, are the lower level students you're and you're trying to move those. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Rather than the overall math score. So I'm really targeting the students who have that foundational base and the lower scores and numbers and operations.
Okay, thank you. And the after-school programs, how are you capturing additional students on top of that with that, or are those the same students? Oh, you are? I get.
That works best for us.
Okay. 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 So Gutierrez and Rockwell don't have it, but Colt Andrews and that's included in the, okay. And then the high school is gonna also receive, I'm assuming that's not set up the same way.
Yes. Yes, we don't have the interventions yet, but when we do get the articles, we'll be looking at setting them up very
I'm going to interrupt real quick here because I'm getting a bunch of texts from community people who are watching on TV and they cannot hear the answers. So
So we'll have them come up to the microphone.
I know
If anyone
everybody
else-
loves to come up to the microphone, but they're not getting to hear what you have to say. So
Yeah.
no, if there are any more questions, would you come to the microphone to answer them, please? Just so that the community who couldn't be here can hear you tonight? Thanks. Okay. Yes, Carla.
I had one other quick question or comment. Thank you for the in-depth. I know it's hard for some of us to see and hear, but I very much appreciate the details about how we're going to address learning loss. Another question popped into my mind while you were presenting, and since it's my wheelhouse, I figured I'd go ahead and ask it. I was wondering, and I don't want to put our teacher or administrators, on the spot, but I'm wondering anecdotally, what are we seeing as far as mental health? What are we seeing as far as sort of student behavior and psychological things that are presenting themselves, not only behaviorally, but achievement and academically? And I'm wondering if they had any suggestions or needs that they wanted us to hear about how we can help address that. I know I saw some plans for additional social workers, and I was just wondering if there's any additional details you might be able to share or any anecdotes that you feel would be appropriate for us to hear.
All right. Would any of you be willing to come up to the microphone and share a little bit about what you're seeing in schools?
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I should have planned ahead with my
Oh,
thinking
see,
here.
now they're all coming
Thank
up.
you, thank you.
Wonderful.
So one of the things we've really noticed from last year to this year, last year, the students who were in school, there was such tight structure that, yes, there were a number of students who did struggle outside of school and certainly inside of school. But this year we've brought back, my building, we have over 100 more kids in the building and trying to maintain safety and things. But, we have laxed in a lot of areas to help school be more like school and to help kids be more like kids. But there's certainly some areas that, some areas of maturity. Students have gone a year without learning how to work with each other, some of them a year and a half, and especially looking at our second graders, who a lot of them had a half a year of school going to second grade. Fifth graders were really third graders, a lot of them going to fifth grade. So there's certainly a lot of needs as far as social skills and the emotional side as well, not just with COVID, but we all know there's a lot going on in the world, a lot of turmoil and chaos, and that certainly bleeds through into our kids' lives, and that does come into school. So we are seeing a need for kids to be working with our social workers, our school psychologists, our connections programs. So each of us have added in that need for additional social worker support at the buildings, just so we can have more of those social skills groups, more of those push-in lessons where the teachers are working with the social workers to have, our teachers are great at building in social emotional learning along with the academics, but there's certainly a need for that to continue and grow.
Thank you.
I'm going to interrupt again because I just got another text. Would you identify yourself for the
Sure.
people that are watching? Thanks.
Sure. I'm Tara Mcauliffe, principal of Rockwell School, and I just wanted to agree with what Miranda said and also say that our teachers are mentioning that academic stamina is really reduced and that we have to really work hard to build that back up. I think from the DL schedules that were a little, you're on for a little while and you're off, and we kind of lost, I think, some of the real rigor and stamina that you really need to achieve at those high levels. So that's part of it too, kind of building that back in a gradual increasing way.
Thank you. I'm noticing that at my own house with my middle and high schooler for sure. Thank you.
Hi, Deb DiBiase, principal of Mount Hope High School. I'm going to reiterate what our elementary school principals just said, only multiplied at the high school level. There is that academic stamina issue, but a very, very high increase in mental health issues. A lot of students struggling socially, emotionally, suicidal ideation, as well as we're seeing behaviors, as you know, that is very unlike our students, and certain levels of, again, lack of social skills, lack of learning how to be together, and it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say that as I looked through this data before the meeting, I agree that it's hard to look at in some ways, but I would actually go a little further and say it's hard to look at because it is, like all data, it doesn't actually tell us much without the context. It's a snapshot of a moment in time, and for a third grader who may not have been in school and suddenly they're in school, it's a snapshot of how they were feeling that day that they took the test. So I appreciate, Dr. Sana, that you gave us all of this context to the data, because the data alone doesn't really tell a story. And as I read through it, I sort of went back to my improv training where you have to say and, right? So are we failing our students because their learning is decreasing, not increasing? Yes. And should we celebrate the fact that we got through a pandemic? We switched to distance learning so quickly. The fact that our teachers were having to teach, online and in person and with their own kids at home. I think all of those things are important to sort of name at the same time. The other thing that there were two big takeaways for me from this, from the sort of context, the narrative piece. One was that if anybody still thinks that teaching and learning should be done the same as it was 20 years ago, where it's a teacher delivering a one-size-fits-all lesson to a bunch of kids, this shows us that that doesn't work anymore, right? Because we had a teacher delivering the same thing without any personalization, without any chance to build a relationship with those kids, and it didn't work. The other thing that this showed me, that the importance of a positive school culture and a school climate and a positive environment for kids to learn, because it's only when kids have these sort of trusting relationships with the adults in their building, and in a building in which they feel safe and they feel seen and they feel respected, it's only then that they can improve their learning, not sitting at home being spoken to, spoken at in some ways. So those are the two big takeaways for me. We have to focus on our school climate and culture, and we have to focus on supporting students. And again, the students that struggled in COVID across the country were the students who are minority students, students with food and housing insecurity, any of those sort of marginalized groups. So this shows us that if we lift up those marginalized groups, the entire district will improve, and it's all right there in front of us. So if we can focus on those things moving forward, and you have a plan for that, and I think as a team of parents and school committee and school leaders and teachers and administration, we all need to get together and see the importance of what we're seeing here, and it's positive in that we should have a roadmap moving forward. So I really commend the sort of analysis you did, and it sort of helped me at least to sort of see what we need to do moving forward. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have one question about the math and is it just math or math in LA, the specialists that are going to be coming in?
Mhm.
I'm curious, as we continue our search for superintendent, how are there many of these people in these positions available?
That's a really good question. So For reading specialists, it is definitely hard to find a certified reading specialist, especially when it's only a 1-year only position. They obviously would like a full-time position. But there are always more people graduating from programs. Sometimes if we can't get someone with the reading certification as a specialist, we can get somebody that has a really strong literacy background with additional coursework in literacy. And the same for mathematics. Many of the local colleges now have a minor in mathematics at the elementary level, and we've been very fortunate to hire a few of those folks. So even though they don't have the certification, which for reading, it's like 10 additional courses that you need to get that certification, we have found candidates that have really strong backgrounds. We also have our K-8 math coach that is able to train people in the intervention tools that we have. So that's been really helpful to get them up and running quickly. And under the guidance of the math coach or the ELA coach, that we're able to make sure that they have the skills and the tools that they need to do the intervention work. And classroom teachers are also working with them to really pinpoint the learning needs and to make sure that we're providing the support. So it's not always ideal and the specialists aren't always out there, but we've been able to hire qualified staff to do the work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question of the principals, and you don't have to come up to the microphone. How long do you think it will take before the children are comfortable again being in school for that amount of time learning? You talked about the fact that their ability to focus or to spend time on learning has been shortened. And I just wondered how long you thought that might take until it gets back to something reasonable. Do you have any idea? If you don't, you don't. I just wondered.
We don't really. I mean, it's a unique situation that I've never lived through before. So it is hard to tell. I mean, you know that the world isn't exactly back to normal yet either. So, you know, things are still a little bit in flux. Some people might not be trying to still, some don't. So, I mean, we're making it as normal as possible and hoping that helps everybody.
Are we seeing any improvement yet? Sort of as we get into that 90-day, you know? Okay, that's all. Yeah. Thank you.
It's just, you know, hard to think how that impacts.
All right, thanks. Anybody else? Then I'd like, yes.
I just have a more kind of specific question about something. I'm wondering, Dr. Santa, if there's any way to measure the benefits or not of the new math and reading curriculums besides the next round of RICAS test scores. How do we, going through these, you know, starting out with these new curriculums, how do we look at them to see if they're really helping? Because sometimes I get concerned that, you know, we don't really want to stay with something that's not working, right? So I'm just wondering how you kind of measure that going along.
That is a great question. With new curriculum, it typically takes up to 3 years to really see the impact because students need to catch up on their learning and each curriculum presents information in a different sequence. So what we can look for as early indicators is, number one is, are all teachers able to implement the program as it should be done? So that's kind of first thing. And what is the pacing like? Is that working? Then when we look at our unit assessment results, we'll be able to see the percentage of students that were proficient on the curriculum assessment, and then put that along with our iReady interim assessment. So we're able to look at the beginning of, you know, third grade, for example, typically we see this amount of growth during the year. With the new program, are we seeing an increase in growth? So it is very difficult to measure the impact of a program because there are so many different factors that you're looking at. You're also looking at was there a long-term sub in the school? How long have teachers been teaching? Did they fully embrace it? Do they have enough time for instruction? So all of those things we're trying to work on at the same time, and there are a lot of different metrics that we'll be looking at rather than just one.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah.
but that's Unfortunately, you would have to do like a real intensive scientific study if we wanted to truly measure the impact, and that's
you are
very difficult to do.
Yeah, thank you. But it does sound like there are early indicators that people are looking at to see if this is moving along as
Correct.
we're hoping it will.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things in K through 2, the teachers that are participating in the letters training, which is really based on cognitive science, it's really very advanced and really, really powerful. They are seeing those same approaches in the new interreading program, and they're saying, look, they're teaching it the same way. This is the same. This is good. So they're even identifying that it's a high quality program and already starting to see more results. So
Great.
we'll continue to kind of collect that anecdotal data as well for teachers to think about, gee, when I've taught this in the past, students didn't get it as clearly as they are through this program. So that's another piece as well.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for taking the time
You're
to go
welcome.
through this and put it all down, because a lot of people have been talking about scores and where we are and what we're doing and where we're going with it. And I think more importantly, what we're doing to try and ramp up what was lost during their absence from school is critically important. And I'd like to thank the principals for coming and for being honest about what they're finding and what they're doing and the kinds of things that they still need and what they see coming in the future. So the real test, I suppose, is next spring.
Yes, so they'll take the RICAS assessment again in the spring. And we're very confident that we will see gains because now we have students in school in front of us, and we have great new programs and interventions and additional support staff.
Well, for me personally, this is a year to take a look and to relax and to see what it is, what we're doing and where we're making gains and where we're not, and adjusting ourselves accordingly after that. So thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next thing on the agenda is the 2022 school committee meeting schedule. We are obligated to publish this meeting schedule by December 1st. So tonight we have to vote on it. Does anybody have any questions about it? Anybody look at any of the dates and have concerns?
This was the same as the one we had before, right? Nothing changed from when we voted on it.
No, this is for 2022.
Oh,
This is a meeting schedule.
For some reason, I had them all in my calendar.
Hmm? This is for when we have school committee meetings.
No, I understand.
We have to post it in town.
Madam Chair, could I ask a quick question? So when we look at this, sorry.
No, please, go right ahead.
Just right
No,
away.
take it.
When we see a Wednesday on here, that is because the Monday of that week falls on a holiday, correct? Or some kind of a,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
So this doesn't mean that we can't deviate from this come next January or February if we have to make a change, but this is the one that we will publish as our primary meeting schedule calendar. All right, so I need a motion to accept this.
Motion to accept.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next thing on the agenda is the superintendent search process. all of you received a copy of the search process, and the subcommittee had a meeting tonight, and we are forwarding this on to the full school committee for acceptance with the addition of step 3, which is the school committee shall choose the top up to 3 applicants.
Subcommittee or school committee?
The subcommittee, sorry, to be interviewed by the full school committee. We said it's up to 3. So that's the only change that we made. However, it was not a unanimous vote, and so I would turn to Mrs. Schofield to explain what she wanted added.
Sure, thank you. So the reason I voted against this search process at the subcommittee level is because I felt there should be a community survey, something that went out to people in the school district and beyond in our community to get some feedback about what people are looking for in a superintendent in this district at this time. And it's not included in this.
So I need a motion so we can discuss this.
So moved.
I need a
Second.
All right, discussion. This is the first time all of you are hearing about what Aaron wanted to add, so let's have the discussion on that. Yes.
Nikki, you want to go? No, go ahead. Okay. Erin, can you just elaborate, like, what would the survey be, and like, what would the questions be, and like, how do you envision it?
So I hadn't really, we didn't spend any time trying to develop something like that, but when I was given this document, and we discussed it at the subcommittee level, it was just something that seemed to be missing to me. And so when we were having the meeting, I just made the suggestion that something like a survey going out with questions to the community about what, specific questions about just what the community is looking for in a superintendent. But I did not come up with any questions because, like I said, this was just something that I saw that was, for me, missing from the process.
And then
So that would be something for,
what would be the
To be
timeline?
determined.
Because we're kind of like,
I had it when I was looking it over.
like we need one now, right?
Right, so I had it like it would be the third row,
The what?
because that's the soonest. So the third step, I guess, I would have had it as the third step above subcommittee shall choose up to 3 top applicants, because it would have to happen now. So when we were in the personnel subcommittee meeting, I suggested this with basically a survey going out this week.
So who would develop the questions? I guess I'm just.
I think that,
How woid the questions
I
be
don't
developed?
really
Who would
know.
develop them?
I don't really know. I was thinking district admin would work to develop questions, and then, because we have done something similar to this in the past, and that they would then send that survey out to community members, have a deadline, and then those results would be reviewed and put out to the school committee to see, and then the community clearly, and then we would continue with this process. But it was a preliminary idea based on what I got.
Yeah, I just am nervous because we need one right yesterday.
So my
10 days ago.
my comment was to back up what you're saying, Sheila, because I also was in support of the idea of some community involvement. And
Yeah.
I would go further and say, so many people in our community came together to do work around the strategic planning process. There were parents, there were people who are homeowners in the community, they don't have kids. There was all, like the charter that I worked in, there was all sorts of people on that group. And that work has already been done. So why wouldn't we use that as kind of a basis? 'Cause
I've
that's-
actually never seen a strategic plan.
It's not finished yet, I don't think,
Oh.
but there's enough work done that we could
It's
use it
ready
as a
for you
basis.
now. I just finished it last weekend, so it is.
Because that's the community
for you.
input.
Well, Dr. Santa's been working very hard.
But
and I
that's
have
the
to give her a lot
community
of credit.
input. So why not use the strategic plan as a template? Because that work has been done. What do we want our district to look like? You know, who do we want to lead it? That's all there. So I don't know why we're doing the two things in
Oh, I see what you're
isolation.
saying. So use the strategic plan to develop
As long
how
as
we're
you,
going to pick.
as long as you understand that, first of all, Dr. Santa's been working diligently to finish that up, and I have to give her a lot of credit for that. But we have not approved that yet.
Right.
It comes to us at the business meeting. She
Yeah, I was thinking more
informed me the other
informally.
day.
I was thinking more informally to design the questions that we could send out to the community. But yeah, time is of the essence. If this is something that can be done tomorrow. But I just think that it would be nice to have some community input if possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Carla.
I agree. I feel like we have been doing this process in earnest. However, I think in order to ensure the success of our district and appropriate use of our jobs and our position, that we have to get community buy-in. I think it's going to be difficult to have a superintendent be successful if our community members and parents aren't able to share with us in a meaningful way what they expect of us. So I agree, I'm not trying to get in the way of progress at all, but I do feel very strongly about making sure we're getting buy-in. I think Mrs. Piper's ideas and Mrs. Schofield's ideas are great, and I would support doing that same work.
I would ask Dr. Santa, if it's possible, could you send the members of the school committee a draft of the strategic plan? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't even know how long it is. But if it's not too long, could you send it to them tomorrow morning? And then they could all take a look at, including myself, of what all of you came up with when you finished it up and wrapped it up for the public.
Absolutely. We'll send it out in the morning.
Thank you very much. Is that okay with all of you? To finally
that's
get
great.
to take a look at it, but remember, it's a working document because we haven't approved it yet. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Santa. So does anybody else have anything to say?
I
Yes,
just have a
Karen.
question about setting a timeline. I'm all for, community input, but I just think we should set a timeline just because of the situation that we're in.
All right, thanks. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. The motion that was made that adds the up to 3.
So you're voting on the motion to approve this plan with the change up to 3 candidates.
Correct,
That's what the vote is on.
correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. What?
3. No, I'm a 4.
All right, the last thing on our agenda before we go into executive session are the KMS.
Marge, can I just verify that to make sure I understand, to clarify? So that was voting for the search process with no community involvement survey, but with
Correct.
the change of up to 3 applicants?
Correct.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
And with everybody on the school committee getting a copy, because I did hear I heard what everyone said, but what Nikki said about the strategic plan does resonate for me in terms of everybody sitting here knowing what the outcomes of that were, including myself.
KMS?
Yes, KMS and Mount Hope High School security updates. These are going to be really general because that's what they have to be. And then we'll be moving into executive session. So Dr. Marr, if you'd like to speak to it, or whoever is you have to speak to it.
All right, we have been working very diligently with the high school principal, Dr. DiBiase, and her team, all of them, the SRO, the two SROs up at the high school, the town manager extended one more SRO for this high school to be permanent here at the high school. So the one that was at the elementary level is going to move to the high school for the next few months. Okay. So we investigate, actually, it was the high school principal, Dr. DiBiase, who investigated an e-pass, hall pass, in which students would sign out electronically. So if you needed to use the restroom, you ask for a pass through a computer. Then you would, if you didn't come back in the allotted time, as I understand it, again, the hall pass, the information turns into color. And then you actually, as a teacher, get to see that color and say, wait a minute, you've been gone now for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you had decided that the amount of time was that you could leave. So we feel that the teachers would have much more control over, destinations other than, the restrooms, or also, if they wanted to go to guidance, or if they wanted to go to the nurse, or whatever. That would all be as permission from the teacher through the e-hall pass. So the teacher would say, no, you don't, deny your pass. In other words, you would not get a pass. Also, the teachers have the ability to limit the number of passes that are given out to any student during the day, during the week. They can say, well, wait a minute, you've been going out every class during the day. You go out once during the day, once per period. We're going to cut that down. You don't need to go once per period. So the teachers would have the ability to deny passes. And they would also have the ability to deny certain students being able to go out at the same time, which certainly, as you well know, can create a problem. So we really feel, and again, we feel that the investment in this program is well worth it. And I'm sure there's so much more to it. I saw, a snippet of what the program was about. So it's another security issue in containing the students' ability to float through the building. Now they're not going to float so much.
Well, I think part of why some of the members here wanted it on the agenda is to let people know that we are paying attention.
Oh,
that we are
absolutely.
aware, and that we are taking steps. Unfortunately, we can't necessarily tell you all of those steps, but we can assure you that in fact, that is what we're trying to do. And when we go into executive session, we will discuss that. Yes, you may.
As a sub in the system, sub for 7 years, who's going to have access to that? So I come back to high school sub, how am I going to know who's on that list and who's not on that list? Some of the building or a database sub is going to have access to a list of who can leave and who cannot leave?
I think that you'll find that out from your principal.
Oh, it will be a lot.
Because if the teacher's teaching a class, how are they going to keep track of who's leaving the room? They have to go back and do the book.
I think that will be coordinated by the principal of the school that you're in.
I'm just going from
No. That's a very good question.
Because I sub now at middle school.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
leave the room at a time, but I put the time on the board, and kids will take 10 minutes, but no one can leave the room, because God forbid if something happens, it's easy to keep track of who's get out of the room. Then work is out.
All right, thank you.
Right.
You had a question?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Ed, I got a question for you. Why are we bringing another SRO up here?
I think it's just for security purposes, Mr. Cabral. We felt, actually, it was the town manager who felt strongly, and also the police chief, that maybe the second SRO we already have an SRO at the elementary level. We're not seeing the same kind of issues there. So he felt that at least we could borrow him, and he could go back and forth to the elementary school, but we could borrow him for the next few months just to add more security to the high school.
Ed, is this a result of the assault that happened at the high school?
This is a result of a lot of things at the high school. That would be one of them, but this is a result of other things as well.
But I have parents that contacted me and want to know if their children are safe in this building. Can you tell me that they're safe in this building?
I can tell you they're safe in this building.
Then could you tell that one child who was assaulted that they were safe?
Yes, we can. We're keeping a very close monitoring eye on him.
What are we doing, Ed, about the TikTok destroy whatever in the bathroom situation? Is that being
Again,
addressed?
that's the part of this, is that monitoring those bathrooms. I mean, the high school team has been outside of bathrooms for the past 2 weeks, and I know exactly what you're talking about. They have been monitoring those bathrooms. They've unfortunately had to close some of the bathrooms because we don't have the personnel to monitor 15 bathrooms. So we don't want to close bathrooms, but we've had to so that we can monitor them closely.
So we have someone monitoring the bathrooms in between classes?
Yes.
And how about, what do we have in here during cafeteria time? What do we have for supervision? Is there administrators in here?
There are administrators in here.
For every cafeteria, you're telling me every lunch, there is administrators in here?
I would have to look to Dr. DiBiase.
Well, let's ask her.
There are 3 security techs that are here, as well as the SRO, and administrators are at the same time monitoring bathrooms here and on the top of the building throughout the entire lunchroom, throughout the entire lunch block. So administrators are consistently circling through the lunch and the cafeteria, and otherwise also out in the courtyard and supervising bathrooms.
So you're telling me that sometimes the administrator is not here, they're just passing through? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, which in that case, we have 3 security techs as well as the SRO.
The techs don't have the power that the administrator has. What I'm saying is you should have an administrator in here for every cafeteria. Every single cafeteria time, there should be somebody who's in charge, not a tech, not a whoever supervisor, but there should be a tech, there should be an administrator in here so that my kids are safe. And that's not happening. You know that.
All right,
Excuse me.
yeah. That's a little.
May I? I just want to express that I know this is very heartbreaking for not only our administrators and our teachers and our parents, but our students. I think this is an indirect result of all of the other COVID kind of collateral damage. I'm heartbroken that there are families and kiddos that don't feel safe. We have this discussion in my own home. And I'm wondering if the e-hall pass might enable us to open up some more bathrooms potentially. I'm also just kind of needing to voice that this feels punitive. And I'm uncomfortable with the punitiveness of it. I know that there aren't a lot of choices and options sometimes that are presented, but I want to encourage us as a district when we talk about culture and we talk about positive culture to be creative about how we can meet the needs of our students instead of having this feel like a punishment. And my high school student will probably shoot me, but I will share an anecdote. That was not an appropriate analogy, I realize now, but I put my foot in my mouth sometimes. He's one of those kids that when he needs a breath or a break, as a kiddo that is anxious, that he will oftentimes go to the bathroom and maybe take the long way home. And he's he's a well-behaved kid. He gets great grades. He's not part of this problem, at least I don't think so. But it feels like that's going to be difficult for kids like him to get a mask break or an emotional break from their time in school. And I'm just hoping that we can be thoughtful about the kids that aren't part of the problem. And even the kids that are part of the problem need our support. I'm really hopeful that we can figure out a way to support all of our students so that we can make everybody in all of our buildings feel safer. And I think that requires allowing children to be seen and to ask for help and to ask for what they need. And maybe if that's a trip to the bathroom, then so be it. Thank you.
Yes, Sheila.
Oh, Dr. Marwan, you can go. I'll go after you.
I just wanted to answer, the idea behind this is not to be punitive. So for instance, the classroom teacher would know that maybe a few students need a little bit longer to come back in. That can be all built in to the program. It's not one shot for everyone, and you get that. They have the ability to adjust times and adjust it to your student and other students that might need that extra time. But this way, we'll have an idea as to the length of time they go out, because they go out, meet their friends and everything else. What we're trying to do is curtail that time, but the classroom teacher will have the ability to adjust as she or he sees fit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. So I've received, like probably many of you, a lot of concern from parents, students, and teachers. And it's not all about safety. There's a lot of them had expressed concern that students are swearing at teachers, swearing at administrators. They're getting like pushed in the hallway by students. And this is adults. So it appears to me, which makes me concerned, because KMS, we had an issue and we had a sick out, and some of these same issues, same students are they're voicing the same names. And it's making it really is frustrating when sitting here, when we thought we kind of helped the issue. And I understand COVID, and I understand how these kids are hurting, and I understand how teachers have expressed that the masks are causing the dissolve of relationships between teachers and students as well. So I understand a lot of that, but what concerns me is that we have students that are bullying not only students, but teachers. And I thought we had a zero tolerance bullying. And it seems to me that this isn't a one-off incident, which is my concern. This has been brewing for a while. And I don't understand how it got to this point, and that's when we get notified, when it's it's boiled over. And I feel from what the teachers, students, and parents have said, we're at the boiling point. And I don't want to penalize students with an e-hall pass, and I understand it might be helpful. And I'm not sure what they do now because I don't have a student at the high school. But we've got to figure out a way to bring zero tolerance for teachers getting disrespected and other students getting disrespected and bullied and teachers getting assaulted or pushed. And we've got to stop this. And that e-hall isn't going to be the end-all fix.
No.
I don't really see an end-all fix here, and I'm really concerned from what these parents have said. If you saw some of the emails of what students have been telling me, it's bad. And we cannot accept this any longer, and we have a policy and we have things in place to not only protect students, but to protect our teachers. And we need to start pushing on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
Well, I have a question, unless you were going to ask one, sorry.
no, I wasn't going to ask one. I was just going to say that, and Diane, Dr. Santa has her hand up too, that some of this, as hard as it seems, we do have to discuss in executive session. So a lot of the questions that you're raising right now, we'll be talking about in 5 or 10 minutes. But we don't discuss, per the police chief and everyone else, we don't discuss security measures in public right now. So that's
Well,
why
that was
there's an
gonna be my
executive
question.
session.
Well, one of my questions was going to be that the document I have says confidential. So I was confused about why we were discussing it in public.
What?
But everything we've been discussing is on a sheet that says confidential, so
I
I,
have no idea.
and then my second question was going to be, is it actually confidential, or can I ask a follow-up question about the e-haul pass in public?
Legal passes become a public comment. You can certainly ask a question about that in a session.
Okay, may I do that now, Marge? So my concern with the e-haul pass is that I don't know really anything about it except for what's written here and what you've told me, which thank you. But my concern is once the teachers or substitutes or whoever has gained this information that someone has been gone for too long, my interest is more in what happens next. Less so in, this person has been gone for 12 minutes, that's a red flag. Then if people aren't set up with a system of how to deal with that, I don't, it just seems like something I would personally not be in favor of putting into place without all of that around it.
Right, and that's part of what I was going to mention, that there is a training component to all of this. So obviously, all staff and our security techs would be trained in how to use and monitor it. And so it can be monitored on a phone or an iPad, so that any administrator or security tech can see who's out of class at this moment and where they are. So that's the benefit to it. It's just another eye on, who are the frequent flyers, who are out at the same time. So that's
But don't they already know that? I feel like that's what's been established here is that the kids who are the frequent flyers are kids who are known.
What we don't know is if I'm a teacher and someone asks to leave class, I don't know that they've left every other class before me and that they're meeting other students at a certain time in a certain location. So that's what this tool would help with, as well as professional development for our staff and de-escalation strategies because of students that have behavioral issues. And it's very difficult if you haven't been trained in how to approach somebody with those behaviors. So there is a training component as well that would go with this plan.
Okay, and two more quick questions if that's okay. Well, not if it's the same thing.
Okay.
Is this something that would be put into, like, for example, as Sheila was saying, I think, this sort of just I'm just hearing about, I'm just getting this document now, and clearly there's been a buildup. So I guess my question is, are the things on this document, such as this e-haul pass, something that is voted on by this committee or something that is put into place by district administration?
No, this committee is part of the administration of the buildings, and that's the decision that would come from the principal to the superintendent. So this isn't something, like, you're not voting on whether to do an e-pass or not. That e-pass is something they're telling you they're trying to do to improve the discipline of the building. But you're not voting on it, this is a call for information only.
So
Okay.
how about if we stop here and I have a motion to go into executive session, to discuss the rest of
So
your
moved.
concerns.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
When we come out, we won't be making any decisions or taking any votes. We'll just be adjourning the meeting. Thank you.
I don't know.